There was a very interesting argument made on the news last night by a prosecutor suggesting that while Donald Trump remains confident, at least in public, about the fact that he and his family and his corporation, they're not going to go down, they're not going to jail, they're not going to prison, the private actions of Donald Trump and his lawyers and all of those around him say otherwise, that he is preparing to go to prison and doing everything he can to avoid it.
And Maya, I wanted to get your view on the counter argument. As we say around here, you really have to look at both sides of the case, and then people can make up their own mind. But one of the stronger types of arguments legally that was offered by Trump's lawyers, and they spoke sort of in front of that courthouse the day of the first indictment, they said, look, the DA went all the way to the Supreme Court to get Donald Trump's own tax returns. They've been under a microscope for years. The DA's time is running out, which is partly true, in terms of him personally at that office. And they said the best that the DA came up with is stuff that is not typically handled criminally. And there's certainly a precedent for civil cases on these tax matters, that they're not always indictments. And so they said this is the best they got, and we've been under a microscope, and they didn't get that much. What is your view or even potentially analysis or a rebuttal to that argument?
Well, then I would ask, why did Trump's lawyers work so hard to keep his tax returns from the district attorney? And why did Michael Cohen, who was a personal attorney to Donald Trump, actually testify before Congress, actually say that he was guilty? And remember, he didn't get a plea deal, and then testified before Congress, getting no personal benefit, or obviously hoping he might get some, but said, look, tax fraud and insurance fraud were common, and even implicating at one point Mr. Calamari's father, the COO of Trump Board. I would just say that the behavior of Donald Trump himself has demonstrated that he's got plenty to fear.
So that was a very interesting argument, wasn't it? The argument from Trump and all of those around him is like, look, maybe there's some technical crimes here, but it's all very minor, and it's all the sort of thing that often gets dealt with through fines and civil penalties. So this is just a big fishing expedition that hasn't delivered anything. Trump has nothing to worry about. I know some of you have said that in the comments, but the reality is, from a seasoned lawyer, I'm not a lawyer, but she's making the case that the way Donald Trump is acting, how hard he's been fighting any investigation into his company and into his personal taxes, how people have already gone to jail and or been charged for him in terms of covering up information he didn't want state and federal officials and prosecutors to see. He is showing through his actions that he fears prison. It doesn't mean he's necessarily 100% guilty yet. It doesn't mean that he's consigned himself to going 100%. But it's almost like he's preparing for the possibility and doing everything he can to fight it off. And this is one of the reasons that he is going to run for president. I don't think the only reason he's running is to avoid prison. I don't think that's the only reason. I think it's partially about wanting to be president again, partially about wanting all of that attention back, partially about the fact that he makes more money from being a politician than he does his own businesses. And in addition, being in politics formally, announcing that he's running for president, makes it more politically damaging to go after him. Because if he's formally running, he can say, among other things, they are trying to silence me and silence my movement and silence Republicans by locking me up while I am running for office. So keep all of this in mind. Trump and his supporters can remain confident, but behind the scenes, he knows there's a good chance he could get locked up.